Good evening everybody, welcome to the studio this evening. And tonight we'll be doing some more of this this large pussycat, or otherwise known as a lion. Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's have some heat, get that wire out of the way so I don't accidentally melt it. Alright, let's do some work under the chin down here. This is going to be in shadow. So at the very least we'll underpaint the shadow. And for this we'll need some more heat. Fluffy Twiglet, good evening, welcome to the studio this evening. I hope you're feeling well today. I'm almost out of frame there, aren't I? Let's push that way a little bit. Okay, now I can erase the pencil mark that's around there before I cook it in. Actually, it won't be too bad because it's going to get dark anyway, but if I get into the habit, make sure I'm in the habit of erasing my pencil marks, then I won't accidentally forget it. I still haven't seen the Doctor Who yet, Fluffy Twiglet. I might watch that tomorrow. Buffer, you're getting buffering, are you? Must be Twitch. Probably with Bob Ross broadcasting. I think there was umpteen tens of thousands watching him earlier on. And it's probably stretching their creative stream resources to the limit. In theory, I'm streaming with no problem though. Bob Ross on Twitch, indeed. He's got his own channel, Fluffy Twiglet. If you just drop into the whole of the creative section, you'll probably find he's the lead broadcaster. In actual fact, I think he's on the front page of Twitch as well. He certainly was earlier. In fact, I think he was single-handedly making the creative section the front page of Twitch. There was something like about 19,000 viewers. What I can't work out though is quite who's watching him, because he is in the creative section, and of course that many viewers in creative is quite unusual to say the least, and sort of if they are people that sort of know who Bob Ross is, then it's kind of like, well, why aren't they reading creative before? And if they don't know, why are they watching him? Probably because of the other 19,000 that are watching him. And I think we're getting quite a few people that are sort of just watch big streams because they're big streams. You know, it's the if 19,000 other people are watching, it has to be good. Don't understand what's going on, but it has to be good. Exilian, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. I haven't watched the chat. I did watch him for just a little bit earlier, but not for very long. I wonder how many of the those 50,000 watching think it's a live broadcast, and that he'll respond. Oh dear. It actually would not surprise me if they were serious, Captain Derby. I mean, if I wasn't broadcasting, I'd be saying, "Go check him out. It's worth watching." Is it? But yeah, as I'm broadcasting, stay here. Or watch him on another monitor at the same time. But yeah. And this is actually a frustrating part of pyrography. I'm wanting this area at the bottom here obviously to go as dark as that, and the wood just isn't wanting to colour, and be very careful, because if I actually sort of left the pen on there, it would colour, it would go really to start smoking. And of course I don't want that. So it's a very fine line between sort of forcing the colour and getting a colour you didn't want. That doesn't look too bad. And yes, I have left that little sliver on purpose. It's actually part of his jaw, not part of the underneath. So I just left it for the moment. So now I'm going to do something similar up here, around the ears. First thing I'm going to do is just give myself an outline. So again, as I've said before, I can then erase the guideline. turn this down, mate. Cool the tip off, which is if you see me blowing, I'm just cooling the tip off so that I don't immediately get too dark a mark the instant I put down the put the pen down. In some ways, actually, the pen, as I said before, the pencil mark doesn't actually make much of a difference here because I'm going to be dark enough to hide the pencil line. But if I make sure that I do erase it, then at least that way I don't forget in the future when it wants to be in a light area. I gather now that Twitch has been officially supporting creative streams now for about 3 or 4 days, since about Wednesday or Thursday of last week. Has anybody seen much impact of that? I've not really watched Twitch with being out for a couple of days, and this weekend, of course, it's sort of I've come back in and almost immediately started streaming, so I haven't had a chance to check it out. Certainly, just before the stream, there seemed to be a lot more people streaming than previously. I don't know if that's just pure coincidence or just purely a Saturday night. Sorry, a Sunday night. It's not Saturday. Yeah, probably. And yeah, as I say, I'm not sure there's there's that many people watch creative before, but as you say, if they did, then they obviously are likely to know about Bob and therefore are watching him. And the shadow, well, the edge of the ear is quite sharp, and therefore the shadow, which starts immediately behind it. So I'm just using the tip of this pen to follow down a sharp line. For some reason, cats, and I've seen it on cats and obviously on big cats here as well, they always seem to have a sort of a crinkly bit in their ear. Don't know what that's about, but always seems to be there. I didn't watch on Halloween. Halloween. It was only yesterday. Halloween was yesterday, wasn't it? So today would be the only busy day that you've seen since then. Unless I'm missing something as well, Captain Derby. Okay. Didn't they start that sort of Thursday, I think it was, wasn't it? I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's actually I haven't checked. I must check to see if they actually have video the VODs for it, because there's just too many programs to watch, and they're broadcasting it 24/7 as well, aren't they? Every episode, so. Now, as I'm doing this, basically the heat is the wood is conducting the heat away from this tip faster than the tip heats up, so it's actually cooling down. So I can only actually keep it on the wood for a certain length of time. As you can see, it gets lighter. And turning the temperature up on the tool is not necessarily a good idea, because then as soon as I put it down I'd actually get real dark marks, as I've mentioned before, which is not something I particularly want. So in some ways it forces you to do small areas at a time. And then being sort of a little bit careful not to get too many lines in there is part of the challenge. It looks better on stream than it does in person. Could be the lighting again, but that looks quite really dark, and in person it sort of looks a mid-brown. Okay, I am going to succumb to turning the heat up a little bit and just making sure I work a little bit faster when I first put the tool down, to make sure that it doesn't create that dark spot. What I'm just doing here is darkening the colour slightly and just making it more consistent. The camera perhaps isn't showing it up, but I can see it here, so it's something I want right. Although the pen itself isn't hot, there must be probably there's a convection flow of hot air coming off my fingers and off the tip, which are interacting with each other, which means my finger does tend to get a little bit warm, even though it's nowhere near the tip of this tool. If I was using the sharp end of the tool, holding it up like I normally do, then yes, it does get hot then, but that's kind of understandable because it's right above the heat source. Basically, this is kind of like the shadow of the ear and a little bit of the way the mane is sort of fluffed out, creating a shadow here. So this is going to be extended down into all of this area here. But around the outside of this, it's kind of a fluffy outside. It's the shadow's on fur. So whilst I wanted a nice sharp edge just around the ear, which is the sort of the edge of the skin that forms the ear, around here it's all fur. So fairly soft edges are required. guess one of the skills with using tips like this is to actually be able to position the pen exactly next to each stroke that you make, just so that you fill in all, make sure all the gaps are filled in. This is quite heavy, well it is heavy shadow, it's really black. And I can see some colour variation in that on stream, so I will have to go back over it, I think. Now this bit is actually the shadow of the ear coming down, so that's why this bit stops here, and this bit then is shadow of the mane. The two just overlap each other. Filling in large blocks of colour like this can actually sometimes be quite a boring exercise in some ways, because it's all just one large block. And although you're concentrating trying to make it nice and smooth, and I'm not particularly succeeding in this particular point here, it is really just sort of lots of the same thing. And the temptation then really is to sort of turn the heat up and try and do it a lot quicker. But of course that in itself does have dangers of then creating really dark spots which are hard to deal with. Misal hello, welcome, good evening. It's Long with Pyrography. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. You may be asking how long have I been doing pyrography, or how long have I been doing this particular piece. I've been doing pyrography for about 3 or 4 years. This piece is about 6 hours old, I think. Off the top of my head, it's about that. I think I've been doing it for about 3 or possibly 4 streams. Yes, no, I understand. It's but sometimes, well, I say unfortunately I don't speak French, so it can be difficult sometimes when there's an ambiguity. But that's okay. This area is just a whole area of shadow, so I'm just trying to fill in a large block of colour. It's not quite dark enough for what I want. I will be going over it again, but initially I'm just going in and filling in this quite large area, as dark as is reasonable for this sort of pass. Thank you very much, Miss Alashi. Okay, well that's the main block of shadow included. What I want to do is now is again go back over that and darken it down a little. I know it looks relatively dark on stream, but it's actually lighter here in person than in stream. And also there's a reasonable amount of variation, as you can see. I want to make it a little bit darker, take away some of that variation. Some of it I want to stay. It is after all fur, and even though it's in real dark shadow, I would I don't mind there being some variation left. And sometimes going back over a large area of pyrography like this can actually be quite difficult, because once the wood has got a dark colour on it like this, it can sometimes be quite difficult to make it go darker. It often takes a substantially larger amount of heat than it did to get it this dark in the first place. Now I am making this dark enough for it to give off a slight amount of smoke, which is what you may be seeing. If you see sort of wisps of stuff coming off, it is smoke. Cookie Master 10,000. Welcome. You were born in August. Is that does that use a lion as its symbol? Now if you are seeing the wisps of smoke which are coming off occasionally and wondering if it's going to catch fire, or perhaps hoping it's going to catch fire, the answer is it won't. It's not hot enough to spontaneously combust. Whilst it's hot enough to make it go black, this is more of a cooking effect than a charring effect that you might get from a flame. So I'm more burning it like you might burn food rather than burning it like you would do with a flame. I could in practice, for example, hold this tool on this piece of wood for several hours. All I'd end up doing is pushing it right through the wood, and there'd be lots of smoke coming off, but it wouldn't actually ever burst into flames. It wouldn't get hot enough to do that. Okay, as you can see now, the shadow is going a lot darker, and you're seeing less. You see less of the variation. There still is a bit of variation in it, but there's less variation in it, which is the effect that I'm after. Now I'm doing this in short dabs rather than long strokes. The reason being, I'm giving the pen tip time to heat back up. I lift it off and then put it down as the wood fairly rapidly conducts the heat away, and the tip cools right off. If I do this in short dabs, it doesn't cool off too much, and it does then heat back up quite quickly. But I'm not just dabbing it down, I am actually stroking it. If I were just to dab it down, I would create blotches, whereas the small or the slight stroking action evens out those blotches and creates a smoother texture. And now that I'm working on quite dark coloured wood anyway, and as I say, often it does require quite a bit more extra heat to just go that little bit further. I have now got the heat on this pen turned up quite a bit. There's little danger of me creating overly dark marks. In fact, it's kind of almost, I won't say impossible, but very difficult. so I don't have any worries about doing that by accident in the wrong place. So with the tool temperature turned up, I can work this a little bit faster than I would be able to do otherwise. And although it's really just a case of darkening this down, there's still quite a lot of concentration required to be fairly smooth, because even though I am making this dark, as you can see, there is still sort of, if you like, almost brush marks visible. You know, the sort of vertical lines that you're seeing there. The horizontal ones are the grain of wood, the sort of vertical tool marks, and they actually do show up because they're reflective in slightly different ways. So I do want to try and keep that texture as smooth as possible, which does require a little bit of concentration, just to make sure that you place the tool in the right position, so you don't get sort of lots of peaks and valleys. You try and smooth it out as much as possible. Now, peaks and valleys effect that you get is for two reasons. One is, when you heat the wood up like this, it does become soft, so any pressure deforms it, like softening wax. And so if I were to place any pressure on the wood, I would actually create sort of a shape in it. I'm trying my best not to do that. But the other reason is that we are cooking the wood. We're removing moisture and liquid from within the structure of the wood fibres, and so they have a tendency, when they do that, to shrink, obviously shrinking away from the hottest part, and when they shrink, they create that valley effect. Incidentally, when I held it up like that and you could see the horizontal marks, the grain of the wood, whilst birch, which is what this is quite good, in that the grain, the rings, the way the tree is structured, you've got like hard rings and then soft areas between the rings. Birch is quite good in that both of those are roughly the same sort of density, hardness, whatever, however you want to describe it. But even so, when you apply heat to them, the softer areas in between do shrink away a little bit more, and so you do create a valley effect, and that's what you can see horizontally there. Is the dips where the softer areas of wood are, and the peaks where the harder areas of the wood are, and that's when you can't get away with. It just happens, you've got no choice. I say birch, it's not as pronounced as it would be if I did this on pine, for example. That effect would be really pronounced. but luckily here on birch it's not not fantastically a problem. If you got the chance, you can also use it as part of the artwork. For example, if I'd been able to do, well, physically I could have done, but if I'd have been able to use this piece of wood the other way, so the grain ran downwards, then this would have started to resemble the fir running downwards, because that's the general direction of the fir here. So it might have added to the composition. Because I'm working with an A4 piece of paper, I wanted it landscape, well, A4 board, I wanted it landscape. I kind of had no choice. These have been cut with the grain horizontal. Or in this bit of the wood, the grain is roughly horizontal. Now at this point there is quite a pronounced transition from shadow to not shadow, just the way in which the hair works, but it's actually not as pronounced as that, and we will soften that area off a little bit later on. Now this bit of the shadow is fairly sharp edged, and just the nature of the way in which it is created, we won't, whilst there's not a hard sharp true sharp edge on there, it does go almost from shadow to non-shadow very, very quickly. So we're going to stick fairly well to this edge here, and we almost certainly won't be coming back and softening this area off. Of course, like the film says, never say never. This is kind of like a bit of fur that's been pushed in, so the shadow is being cast by this piece of fur here, and it's kind of like a valley, and as the fur comes back up here, it then catches the light again. So this is kind of like a valley which is in shadow, whereas this is kind of like a shadow that's being cast. Okay, well, so while I'm doing this, I'm just going to point out to anybody that's watching that isn't aware, the pictures that you see on the bottom left of the screen are all images taken from things that have been done on the stream. Now, there's quite a large number of jewellery items there. Jewellery is something that we have been making on stream, and that's some of it, not all of it, but that's some of it. and in particular a lot of those are available in the shop. So if you've any interest in jewellery that's been made from aluminium rings, which is also known as chainmail, then if you want to take a look there, zaragonart.acit.com. There is items available. I think they're good, but I would. It's my shop and I make them. But I also obviously think that they're really good for things like presents and things like that. Christmas is coming up. And whether it's a present for someone else or a present for yourself, I think many of them are excellent for presents. In fact, I think all of them are excellent for presents. But feel free to also pass that site on to anybody else. There isn't any pyrography in there at the moment. I'm not sure quite what I want to put in there or not put in there just yet. Some of the pieces that I do, all of them are unique, of course. Even if I was to try and do the same piece again, it almost certainly wouldn't be identical, no matter how I tried. So each of these pieces is unique, but things like this lion, which is sort of the first time I've pyrographed a lion, I'm kind of undecided whether I want to keep it for myself or not. Some of the pieces, like the I'm not sure they're in that image roll there, but some of the pyrographic pieces, like the aircraft and the train, I may well put up for sale at some point in the future. If anybody is interested in pyrograph art and would like something, then you feel free to contact me, either on Etsy or on Twitch. And a lot of this black is kind of like a glaze which is set on the surface of the wood, and reheating it areas, as I'm doing here, actually does allow you to sort of push it around a little bit, so you can use it to sort of cover up some small areas, or if an edge just isn't quite soft enough in terms of transition, you can push the glaze out a little bit. Or if there's some areas which the transition of colour isn't quite smooth enough, or you can just push it around a little bit. I'm surprised babies like yourself, Craig Jones, have got the foggiest idea what a computer is, never mind be able to actually get on a stream. Oh dear. You're trying to come out with an insult. You've got to do better than that. Well, no, you don't have to do better than that. You probably can't. But anyway, yeah. I'm surprised you even know what the word means. But there you go. Takes all sorts, I guess. But let me suggest that if you want to stay around here, you start being polite. Otherwise, I don't give warnings. As I said, I don't give warnings. There's no point. You're an idiot. I've been married probably for more years than you've been born, so forget it. Not interested in you. Right, so another really dark area in the inside of the ear. Not quite sure how to deal with that at the moment. Let's just try roughing an area in. Yeah, it's going to be about halfway, roughly, given the light source. I'm going to have a lot of fur in the ear as well. This is perhaps one area where the grain will actually assist, because it's running in that sort of direction, which is roughly where the direction is on that part of the ear. What we'll do here is gradually just darken this down, because I'm sort of being fairly random across here. I will get some texture, but essentially most of it will disappear. Don't want a hard edge on this at all. Because we've got fur coming into it from both directions. So I'm keeping working here to make sure that I don't get a hard edge. Basically, it's essentially just swishing the tool backwards and forwards across the edge. Will sort of help in the illusion that there is fur coming in from the sides. And of course we've got fur that's coming in from the bottom here. BearPig98, welcome to the studio. Thank you for following. Sorry, I keep leaning forward because of the lighting. What I ought to do, I guess, is move the camera back a little bit, so that when I do, I don't disappear off the top of the frame. If you don't know the answer to that question, Bear's Pig, then I'm not going to tell you. This is going to need to go darker, but it's not bad for the first pass. Thank you, Bear Pig. Okay, now what I want to do is make this area darker. This is right down inside the ear, so There's virtually no light getting in there. So again, because I'm working with wood that's now been darkened off, I've got the heat turned up on this tool, which helps create a darker mark. Because generally speaking, wood when it's been darkened like this actually takes quite a lot of heat to make even darker. It's not quite proportional. The darker it gets, the harder it is to make it darker still. Now, what would the goggles be protecting me from, Bear Pig? To answer a question that didn't get asked, and has been mentioned before about safety goggles. Safety goggles, people, you wear safety goggles to protect against impact. So if you're using any form of rotary tool, for example, because there is the chance of the tool shattering or breaking off pieces of whatever it is that you're using the rotary tool on, any form of power tool, drills, lathes, planes, anything, you wear safety goggles then to protect against the impact. You can also get standard glasses, which are rated for impact and therefore will act as safety glasses. You'd also wear them if you're doing things like painting as well, by the way, to stop liquid splatter. Standard glasses aren't necessarily as good as full safety lenses, because full safety lenses also have side protection, which standard glasses don't, even with safety rated lenses. But in this particular case there is no material which is being accelerated to any form of speed at all. The danger in this type of work comes in two areas. One is the heat of the tool, and safety glasses could be useful in that respect if you're accidentally going to be waving this around your eyes, which not many people are likely to do. But then safety glasses would have to be rated for heat. A lot of safety glasses are plastic and could melt. These lenses potentially would do the same, but it's that's about the only possible danger that you would get, and you're not likely to do that. The other danger actually comes from inhalation of smoke particles, which you do if you take it this dark. do get some smoke particles, but equally well, any form of air movement to keep those away from your face is also acts as a safety barrier. I have a fan running down the side of me here, which is creating a small flow of air, and you will actually occasionally, when there is a wisp of smoke, see it disappearing in that direction. Safety is perfectly taken care of here. And if you see me doing carving, which I do on stream from time to time, you'll also see me talking about safety there in the use of the chisels, the sharp chisels or the knives that I'm using. Right. Actually, I want to bring that down a little bit further. Might extend that a little bit more later. What we're going to do now is start to bring up the fur towards... Actually, I'm going to bring that further down. What I'm going to start doing here is feathering the edge and using the sharp edge of this pen to start to introduce fur textures just around that edge. So we got sort of jagged, basically jagged edge. That way it resembles the fur more than it would do otherwise. Okay, and then turn that heat down, because then this fur that will then interact and intersect with that area. And it won't look out of place because it's not a sharp straight edge, so it will look like it does transition into the ear. And we'll just darken the edge of this slightly, because there is a slight transition into the dark interior shadow. There we go. I probably want a little bit more darker area just around here. And let's transition that a little bit better, so we just extend a few marks out further so we don't get quite as strong a transition as I had there. Okay, and it's what's happening here as well is that the fur is starting to just come up slightly as it goes into the ear, which is taking it out of the light, so it's moving into darkness slightly. So you're getting a sort of a dark edge, and then it transitions into the dark inner ear. Next to put is lots of fur around here and around the edges here, and then down here. But that's not going to be on tonight's stream. We're finished for this evening. I got quite a lot done there, which I'm pleased about. I've got this whole dark shadow area done here, and a shadow down underneath the lower jaw, the chin, basically. No, it's about right. I was debating on not whether that was too shallow, but the light source is up, sort of up here, and when you look at the angle of this here and compare it to the angle for the ear, they're about the same, which suggests that the light source is up roughly where I was pointing. So it's about the right, because that's the tip of the jaw, by the way, just there. And that would be the tip of the shadow for the jaw. So they're roughly they converge, which suggests it's a single light, but they are roughly the same angle. So that is at about the right length. So we put that in. We've put this in, which took quite a bit of doing to get it that dark as well. And we've finally done the inside of the ear and transitioned it in this area out into the temples, basically, I guess. Tomorrow we'll probably do some more in this ear, which is the sort of guard hairs that's around the outer edge of the ear, which I'm guessing are there to stop bugs getting in the ears. And there's a few down here as well, so we'll probably fill that area in, and then once that ear is done, we're into the full mane of the lion. The jaw's coming last. I'm beginning to think what I'm going to do is do the background black or quite dark, at least maybe this sort of colour. Not sure yet. And in which case I want the jaw to be a whitish sort of colour, so leaving it on Pyrographed will make it look white, and then I'll probably be scratching some, and actually what I might do is put a light layer of colour on, so that when I put the dark area on I can actually scratch some fur chin whiskers and fur, which will transition the space between the light and the dark, and which I can only do once this area is dark. And if I pyrograph here as well, it provides a background so that when I scrape it, the scratches actually look whiter. But I still haven't quite decided what I want to do for the whole background yet. I may do an intermediate colour. In fact, I may just do that to start with, see how it looks before, even if I eventually decide I want to go that dark, which is a real dark ebony mahogany type colour. If I do a lighter colour to start with, I can choose to stop. If I go that dark to start with, I've got no choice. It is that colour. If it doesn't look good, too bad. But anyway, let me just move my mouse so I don't accidentally ban anybody else, Captain Dobby. I'm going to say thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching and don't know about the jewellery shop, which I'm getting quite good at pointing to now, there's the URL. Moobot has been dropping it into the chat from time to time. Most of the pictures there are examples of stuff in the shop, but they were done on stream. And at some point I will get those videos up on YouTube, but I need to time-lapse some things and cut out areas like this where I'm talking for long periods of time. There are some other pictures in that roll as well, which are things like carvings or the pyrographic pieces. They're not on the jewellery shop at the moment, but I do recommend, of course I would do, it's my shop, I'd always recommend what's in there, so take a look. It might be of interest. If they're not, just pass it on. If you are watching and not following, I'm going to wonder why, but you might want to push the follow button. I do appreciate everybody that follows. It's fantastic of you to know that people do want to see what you're doing enough to want to come back. On the other hand, if you just like to be notified of when I go live, follow me on Twitter @ZaragonArt. A tweet goes out when I go live and occasionally for other things like when I can't go live. On the other hand, if you just want to try and catch me, next stream is tomorrow night, 8 PM UK time, 2000 hours UTC or GMT, both the same at the moment as the UK time. It's about 2 hours 10 minutes ago. It was 8 o'clock in the UK, so you can do a bit of maths and work it out in your own time zone. Thank you all for watching. I've enjoyed it. Hope I will see you again in the studio in the future. And bye for now.